Thank you and good morning. Really want to start by thanking WICON for asking me to be the keynote speaker, one of the keynote speakers this morning. Really excited to meet a lot of you this evening at the happy hour event, and just want to share a little bit of my experience, how I broke into tech, because I did not start my career in tech, and share a few words, I suppose, of wisdom with you. And like I said, look forward to connecting with a lot of you today. Thank you, Heather, for the great introduction this morning. And wanted to start by just kind of digging in a little bit more of my background, introduce myself, tell a little bit of my story. And then I have a presentation I'm going to walk you guys through. It's pretty short and sweet. I'm not a big bulleted PowerPoint person, so a little bit of imagery, but want to walk you guys through what I'm going to call a presentation I changed the title of. So building blocks, back steps, and breakthroughs. And I originally wanted to call it building blocks and breakthroughs, but I think that was unrealistic. And so realistically, we got to talk about back steps, because it's not all roses trying to build a great career, especially in tech. It's a tough industry, but it's an amazing industry. And so therefore, I tried to break that up and make it as realistic as possible and talk about some of the challenges that we encounter as women in tech, or just in the technology industry in general, whether that's software, true IT, software development, coding, engineering, anything. So if we could go to my first slide, I just want to introduce myself a little bit further, introduce some of the companies that I work for, and talk about how I got to where I was, or where I am today. So like I said, building blocks, back steps, and breakthroughs. Next slide, please. So you heard a little bit about this is my short bio. Heather did a great job introducing me in my longer bio, but I just want to talk about some of these companies. So I actually grew up here in Cincinnati, was born in Lexington, Kentucky. Family business is the restaurant business. So that we have a few locations here in town, the pub in Rookwood, Nicholson's downtown, things like that, event centers, bourbon bars. So I was always around food and beverage. It was a huge passion of mine, but from a very non-technical perspective. So I started as early as you can, working as a hostess. I served, I did all kinds of jobs that you can imagine. And that was my career foundation in the service industry. So it was an amazing foundation. But I didn't feel as if though I wanted to do it my entire life. So I became curious about other industries, and tech in particular, but I had no idea how to break into the industry. I didn't really know any people in the tech industry. I didn't have any friends that really went into those types of jobs right after college. So I felt like I was flying blind. When I was about 23 years old, I decided I was going to go to grad school, not for the purpose of really learning more. That was kind of an added bonus, but it was actually for career change purpose. So I went to Xavier's MBA program. I studied international business. If you're thinking about getting an MBA, I highly recommend that program, by the way. I had a great experience. The international business concentration, went to China for 2 weeks, Israel for 2 weeks. We studied entrepreneurship, innovation, things like that. And it was incredible. I just want to give them a quick plug real quick, because this is a local organization, and that program allowed us to go to companies like Alibaba. If you're not familiar with Alibaba, they are the Amazon for much of the rest of the world. They're based in Hangzhou, China. And we went into their IT room where they're pinging real-time data from all over the world. And it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And that was one of my aha moments. But Israel, if you don't know, is called the Startup Nation. And there's a great book called Startup Nation. If you're interested in technology, if you're religious, anything that might draw you to that country, they're one of the greatest innovators in the world. So that's a population of just short of 8 million people. And per capita, they have, by a landslide, the greatest number of startup companies and billion-dollar tech companies. Really fascinating thing. So by time, needless to say, I came back from both of those trips, and I finished my MBA at Xavier. I was rock solid, confident that I wanted to get into tech. And halfway through grad school, I actually have a funny story, and I'll touch more on this probably later in my presentation. This company right here, Rubicon, I don't know if you can see my mouse. They're based in Kentucky. Actually, they were based in Atlanta, Georgia for a long time, and they just relocated last month to the Lexington, Kentucky area. It's a waste and recycling technology company. And I met the CEO halfway through grad school on an airplane. I was actually flying to watch UK play basketball. I'm sure we have some Kentucky alums here. As we know, we're big basketball people. But I met the CEO of this company on an airplane, and subtle reminder that you can meet amazing people in tech anywhere you go if you strike up conversations. It's amazing if you just, are open, and traveling in particular, if you travel for work or for pleasure, it's always amazing who you'll meet. I have countless stories of people that I've met on airplanes. Probably should write a book about it at some point in time. But I met the CEO there. Basically, we both had gotten stuck in an ice storm in Dallas for about 36 hours. And if you know Texas does not have salt. They throw sand down. And so basically I was stuck in the airport. It took me forever to get a new flight. We were in the last seats of a Delta plane that had not been cleaned very well because they're just trying to get people where they're going. And we struck up a conversation. I had a UK vest on, and he came up to me. He was sitting next to me and said, were you here for the game? He was involved with, the University of Kentucky's business school, and said, did you go to school there? Struck up a conversation about that. And it turns out he's the CEO of a company that was about to raise $30 million in capital to grow their technology side of the business for their waste and recycling company. And now that company is a multi-billion-dollar company. Have investors like Leonardo DiCaprio, some of the best, VC, financial institutions you can imagine. Countless celebrities have invested. I got to manage their paperwork through some of the fundraising process, and it's crazy. So all from a conversation like that. So it's amazing what your local network can do for you. So I just want to put that out there and keep that in mind, because I think organizations like this, and why we're here today, are really powerful. And in places that you're not traditionally looking, you can break in to industries that you're not familiar with. Anyway, I digress, but I think that's a really important story, because I'm talking about kind of breakthroughs here at the end. And that was a huge career breakthrough for me, just to kind of lay the foundation for this talk today. Next experience. So what I did at Rubicon, I suppose slightly ignorantly, basically I talked to Nate Morris, that's his name, the CEO of that company. He was like, I'm looking for an assistant to help me do all kinds of things. And I'm like, I went, got my MBA. I'd love to work in a strategy role or, some type of sales role, marketing, anything like that. And he had asked me, would you be interested in kind of being my right hand, my assistant, as we go out and raise $30 million in capital? This company's going to be huge. We're going to do such amazing things. And I thought about it, and I was like, it sounds awesome. Why would I not do this? And so I took the job. I started there. I worked for him as his right hand for 18 months straight. We raised $30 million, then $10 million bridge, and then another $60 million round. So like in 14 months, we had raised $100 million in capital. I got to meet amazing people. And then it was time to really scale a business with all the money we'd raised. So I moved over, helped on the recruiting side of things. I did technical recruiting, sales recruiting. We had to build a team of 80 salespeople in like 7 months' time. So it was absolute chaos, but it was amazing, and we got it done. So I held all kinds of hats. I learned just about anything you can imagine within a tech organization at that company. And I speak so highly of that experience. So 2.5 years at Rubicon. I had spent a lot of time in New York City, just because a lot of our investors were there, had a lot of meetings there. I got to travel a bit for work. And it was awesome. And I fell in love with the city. And so I ended up leaving Rubicon to join a company called Toast. And if you like to eat at restaurants, which many of us do, and now we can do that comfortably again for the most part. And I miss the restaurant industry, the family business a little bit. So I got into the tech side of the business. I came back to restaurants. Toast is a Boston-based company. When I started, they were worth a few $100 million, which is huge. And now they're absolutely enormous. They're worth about $8 billion, as they announced a few months ago, but I know it's even bigger than that now. I got to work and manage the New York City sales territory. So if you've been to New York City or heard anything about New York City restaurants, it's one of the most iconic restaurant markets in the world, arguably the most. and I got to meet all kinds of restaurateurs and sell them point of sale. So if you know point of sale, that's basically the equivalent for retail is like Square, but for restaurants, it's restaurant specific. And that was my second tech experience. So I was there for just shy of a year. The only reason being is because I had the entrepreneurial itch, and I ended up meeting my business partner and left the company to start my own, and probably did it a little earlier. We should have probably secured some capital, and I learned a lot of valuable lessons about starting a company in a very expensive city with not a lot of capital behind me personally, but we built something amazing today. And so that's really how I laid my foundation in tech, was by networking, was by doing taking enormous risks and leap of faith, and just wanting it really badly to insert myself into a new industry. So hopefully that's helpful. If any of you, are looking to break into tech in particular, or to get into the startup world, or just don't really know where to begin some of the time, I'm happy to discuss that with you. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll share my email address at the end of this conversation. But just wanted to introduce myself before we get into the rest of this. So next slide. What I would like to do is go ahead and reread. Well, I guess I should have been on that slide before. The WIT mission statement. I thought this was important to start with, and I know that we've already looked over this to kick us off, and Heather did that, but I want to read it again because organizations like this are critically important to the growth of the technology industry, because women are a good portion of the workforce. We're half the population, and I know that this organization really is there to help our demographic and help women grow and become more successful in tech. So I'm really excited to be a part of it. Mission statement: to inspire more women to enter the field of technology, to build an environment where those women can flourish and create opportunities for more women to ascend into leadership roles. Being a part of this organization, I will do the best that I can to help others, kind of carve their own path like I did. And I'm really excited to do that. So that's really how I positioned my speech here today. Next slide, if you don't mind. But I want to start by talking about building blocks. Talked a little bit about so where do we go from here? Building blocks. That's where we start. How do we get to where we're going? How do we get off the ground, or how do we get to the next level in tech, whether that's a management level, leadership, or starting something of your own, board seats, things like that. Whatever you aspire to do, where do we go? Next slide. So let's talk about some of the building blocks. All right. So I want to start by saying I am, even though I have a master's degree, I do not believe that education, formal education, is the best way to get to where you're going. For example, my business partner actually dropped out of college, was employee number one at a startup in St. Louis, Missouri. So he's also a fellow Midwesterner. I don't believe that's the only way to get there. So when we talk about building blocks, education, formal education, in this amazing way to learn, to get acclimated, to have a well-rounded education, and all the things that you need to learn to get a job in a lot of places. But I don't believe that's the only way. I know a lot of companies need to see the boxes checked, but in tech, I do think that's slightly less important for formal education from university or associate's degrees. I have one, it's been really helpful, and that was an amazing path for me, but I don't think it's for everyone. And a lot of my family doesn't have formal education. They've been tremendously successful. So I want to start by saying I'm going to give kind of a non-traditional speech and approach, because I think there's a lot of ways you can get there. So business partner, dropped out of college. I have an MBA. We're at the exact same place. So you can really get where you're going by doing it your way. Don't let anyone tell you that there's a specific way. There's just not. I don't believe that. Some people probably disagree with me on here, but that's just kind of where I stand. So education and formal training can be an amazing building block. The way that I hire is I see, people's portfolios. Like, for example, we've been hiring designers recently. By the way, I'm looking for a new one. If anyone is a designer or knows someone that is a designer, we have a posting out there for that, but it's an incredibly important role for us as we build technology. But I look at people that have relevant recent training and experience and have amazing portfolios and interview well and are generally passionate. Passion is one of the most important things that, companies should look for. And if they don't, I believe that they're not hiring properly, but I look for people that have put in the work as of recent in the right area where they want to get into. And if you're not passionate about your job or the product that you're building or the mission that you're working for, what are you really doing? And I've been there before, where I've been passionate and I lost that. To be completely transparent, that's kind of how I was with the family restaurant business. I liked the industry a lot. There was a point in time where I was extremely passionate about it. But I felt like the second I lost the passion, there was something else out there for me. So always a reminder, if you're not passionate, it's probably time for something else. And maybe it's time for something else within tech. Maybe it's the product that you're working on. Maybe it's the people you're working with. That's always really important. And then again, network. I'm sure a lot of people have heard network is your net worth. And I really believe that. I've had the chance to build an amazing network. I've lived in a variety of cities. So I've lived in Lexington, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Ohio, Tampa, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, New York City, all before 30. Part of that was me putting myself out there. I went to 2 universities. I transferred high schools because I wanted to. And I always made sure I met a lot of people and really put myself out there. I think part of that is my personality. But part of that was just taking risks. And I think inherently, however you view creating a network and putting yourself out there, there's so many ways to do it. Again, if you want advice on how to do that and get involved, I'm happy to talk about that. But network is the most important thing. And it's the only reason I've gotten to where I am today. And for starting my own company, it was actually the most important thing you can imagine, because when you're trying to raise your first $1 million in capital and do a friends and family round, that's what you have. You have your friends, your family, and entrepreneurs or people that you've worked for, that those companies have raised money from. That's what you're working with. It's not going to fall out of the sky. It's not going to come to you. And it's not going to take usually one conversation or a snap of fingers to get it done. It is extremely challenging. People will challenge you. It's a very hard thing to do. And that's the reason a lot of startups fail, is because they don't have the funding or the founders don't have the perseverance. And the difference between getting a company off the ground is not just your network, but network is, I believe firmly, one of the most important ways and the most defining lines between success and failure. So whether that's taking another career step, I know everyone here doesn't want to start a company, but getting to the next career step, getting in the door at the company that you've really wanted to work for a long time, your dream job, your dream role, whether that's as a product manager, a full stack engineer, whatever it might be, your network will help you tremendously. And I cannot stress the importance enough of that building block if you're eventually going to break through and be where you want to be in your career. And next slide, please. Okay, so this is the part of the presentation why I amended my title speech, because I thought about my journey, and I think probably everyone, no matter your age, especially for those that are really young, if you haven't experienced this yet, most of the time, it's not always moving forward. There is not always forward velocity. I wish I could tell you that was the case, but it's just not reality. So whether you were rejected from a job that you wanted, I have been. I was rejected for a lot of jobs when I was trying to get into tech. I've been rejected for roles that I wanted at companies. I've been rejected a lot. I've been rejected probably 100 times in our fundraising journey for Native, but it's the yeses that make all the difference. So for the record, rejection is part of the journey. Embrace it. Let it motivate you, not put you down. Whether you believe, that was part of God's plan, whether that was the universe telling you there's a different story, whatever you believe, it's actually a really important part of your journey in your career and in tech, because it's an incredibly competitive industry. But fight through it. Have a good attitude. And I'll touch on that in a minute. But failure, rejection, letting go, being let go. Obviously, this past year was year and a half. I had a lot of friends, even in the tech industry, which, in many areas was booming, but even Toast, where I used to work, they let go like 40% of their employees, a tremendous amount, because their industry was hit hard. Those setbacks are incredibly important if you handle them the right way, but they are part of the journey. They will always be part of the journey. Let them make you better. Do not let them break you down. Tech is a crazy world. There's companies that can raise 10, 20, $100 million and still fail. So you might have the greatest thing in the world one day, and it is not the next week. It is the reality that is out there. The tech startup industry has a very high rate of failure, and it's part of the journey. I have been fortunate to date that we, have had moments of failure, but the company is going strong. Our first product was not particularly successful. It worked. It was extremely hard to build. We had early adopters that love our product and still use it, but it was not the end all be all. We had to scramble during the pandemic. We did a huge pivot. So whether or not I view that as a failure, I view pieces of our journey as a failure. I just wasn't successful as we originally imagined. So that's part of it. I don't have all positive things to share, but our failures and our setbacks as a company, for me as a person, and not only with Native, but in other parts of my career, have made me who I am. And I want to make sure that that resonates with everyone, because whether it's happened to you over and over again, hasn't happened to you yet, it will continue to happen. And next slide, please, because I think this is one thing I really want to hit on. In terms of getting where we're going in tech, and as women, God knows it is harder in a still very male-dominated industry. I can be the first to tell you, but I know we all know that, and that's part of the right reason why we're here. I had to learn two things in my career and in my life in general that have made a world of difference in practice. And this is where the breakthroughs really happen. So one thing I always told by my mother, God bless her, the mother of 6 children, taught me that I needed to work on and has made a world of difference in my career is patience. Patience in getting to where we want to go makes all the difference. There are a lot of people that are born more patient than others. I was not one of them. It is something that you have to coach yourself on, work on, teach yourself over and over, day after day, in a tech career where things move very quickly, change often, failures happen. Patience is incredibly, incredibly important. You will not build $1 billion company and sell it overnight. You will not go from getting out of full stack development school to being a CTO overnight. If you do, please reach out to me. I want to know your secret. But for the 99.9% of us, that is not the reality. The other piece that I think, there's a lot of pieces, but the other piece that I think is really important for truly breaking through and creating value in your career is a positive attitude. We've heard it 1 million times. We need to hear it 10 million more times, because it is incredibly important. A positive attitude changes everything on an hourly, a daily, a monthly, a quarterly, a yearly basis in your career. It is hard to break into tech. It is hard to break through, break down walls in a male-dominated industry. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm an incredibly competitive person. I was always the girl that played basketball with all the boys at recess. I've always been that way. I felt comfortable in that environment, and I think it made me stronger and more competitive. So I know not everyone is that way, but I think there's advantages of us being the minority, if you will, in our field, because it makes us work harder. It makes us develop a work ethic, and it makes us develop qualities like patience, passion, and positive attitude more quickly and take it more seriously than others do. I feel very strongly about that. So those are two things that I had to learn. I have to work on daily. I have had an insane week. I bet others have too. But daily, I sat down, I take a few minutes every day when I'm really feeling it, feeling the pressure, feeling a lack of patience, and sit down and remind myself of those things. And I can attribute being an entrepreneur of almost 4 years now, more than anything, more than the other slides that I talked about and the building blocks, the breakthroughs came from passion, patience, and leaning on positivity. That's, if you take anything away from our time together today, that's I think the most important thing. And breaking through into tech, especially as a woman in today's environment. And I know that I'm supposed to speak for about 45 minutes, but I'm winding down a bit. I'm trying to look at my notes here and see if there's anything else. Give yourself time to feel everything, the frustration, the highs, the lows. Like I said, over and over, technology is a really hard industry, and I look forward to hearing more about people talking about that today, talking about that with people tonight at the happy hour, but feel the whole journey. This industry is so much fun. It can be a very sexy industry at times. It can be an excruciating industry at times, as we know. Technology is our friend, and it often can be our foe and create very painful days for us when it doesn't work and doesn't work for our customers in the end. But take time to feel it, because I feel like, and I believe that there are benefits to this industry, and highs and lows, but highs that can be felt because we grow and we innovate and we can do things at such a faster pace that other industries can't. And the technology industry touches just about every industry out there. I've worked in some really unsexy industries where tech is critically important. Waste and recycling, nasty industry, really untalked about industry. Not an industry people think much innovation can be had, but when you apply technology to the waste and recycling industry, we can better manage, measure, divert waste from landfills, and help solve our climate crisis. So, that's one application. The restaurant industry, as much as people think it's cool, it is a very unsexy industry. You stink at the end of your shifts. You have to take out the trash, name it. It's disgusting. But when you create digital tools to help restaurants operate more efficiently, that's an amazing application. There are so many different industries that I have not worked in, but you can apply technology to everything. So the world of opportunity that's out there for us in this growing sector, growing industry, changing demographic, it's an amazing time to be in the world of tech and IT. And I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited that, I was able to be the keynote speaker today. And again, to connect with my network. I moved back from New York City just over a year ago. For the remainder of the year, I'm going to be living between Cincinnati and New York City. My business is technically headquartered in New York City. My team is fully remote. But one of the reasons I moved home was to build a better network here. Because I feel like there still are not enough tech jobs, tech startups, tech funding in this part of the country. And it's something I am really passionate about, and being a part of it and growing this. I would love to see Cincinnati become a bigger tech headquartered area, have more venture capital funding, flow into the city. I don't feel like there's enough. And I am just one of hopefully many people and organizations that can help see this city in this industry grow. So thank you. I'm happy to take any questions. Next slide. This is my email address. Feel free to reach out to me. I do have a really busy inbox, so I'm a huge fan of connecting on LinkedIn. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, please send me a note and let us know that this is how we connected, was this organization and this event, because I get a lot of messages and I'm hiring, so people are constantly like pinging me. But I am better about LinkedIn than I am email, just given that's kind of all business. But that's totally fine place. And also, if, like I said, we are hiring several interns for the fall for Native, but our most immediate need actually, if anyone is a QA solutions provider, or anyone is a designer or knows someone that is good at that, we have an immediate need in those areas. So that's my quick plug for hiring and for Native. We're a growing company. Feel free to reach out and connect. I'm a big network, like I said, and especially if you're thinking about going to the University of Kentucky or Xavier. I know a lot of people at those organizations, and happy to be helpful, talk about those things. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me as your speaker, and I believe we're going to take some questions, and I look forward to seeing some of those and answering some of those.
Thanks, Sarah. What an incredible journey, and welcome back to Cincinnati. I don't think that I realized that you were still split between New York and Cincinnati, and I'm so glad that you're here.
I've been in Cincinnati all year, the last 13 months solidly, but going to be kind of doing the split time thing. Yeah, it is. It is.
Before we jump into these submitted questions, I want to jump into the most important question that you can ask a UK alumna. Who is your favorite UK basketball player? Just to break the ice a little bit.
Okay. All right. So I need to answer this two-tiered, because one of my buddies, one of my great friends, did play basketball for UK, Ramel Bradley. If any of you remember him, he played, God, what year are we in? 21. Probably like 10 years ago. He's actually an early employee at a startup called App Harvest in Lexington, Kentucky. They just went public, over $1 billion valuation. They are a greenhouse business. They grow fresh produce, no pesticides, all that stuff. So that's a great journey. They're a very technical company. They just acquired a tech company, actually. So a UK basketball player, kind of pretty much co-founder of a tech company. So he and I get along really well. In terms of those that have gone on to the next level, I think it used to be John Wall, but my God, do I love seeing Devin Booker play. And congratulations to him for making it to the NBA Finals this year.
I'm a big Anthony Davis girl, so I love it.
AD graduated. The only UK basketball jersey I have is Anthony Davis. And for those of you that went to UK, won the national championship my senior year of college, which was a hell of an experience, and he was on the team. So yeah, I guess I should add him into the mix as well.
There are too many good ones to pick from. Just to announce this for everyone, you are free to post questions to the Q&A. We have a few that have already come in that we'll get started with, but feel free to keep adding to those. We have some time to ask Sarah some questions and take advantage of all of her knowledge. So first question, what advice do you have for someone starting a business that's a tech product?
Yeah. Work on your network as quickly as possible. So we're in food tech, ag tech. We work with CPG companies. We work with those that grow fresh produce, things like that. CBD, hemp, cannabis, all that stuff. When I moved to New York City, where we started the business originally. Now, New York is a much bigger and better market for this, but there was like 350 food tech and ag tech events in 1 year in New York City. And I was working for Toast at the time, but I was extremely interested in the area, hence why I quit my job and just totally catapulted myself into the world of entrepreneurship. I went to every single food tech and ag tech event that I could. Every single night I had time that was free. I went out and I met people that I know could either be my business partner, an employee, somebody that would know somebody that's got some money, somebody that knows somebody that's got some money. Put yourself out there as often as possible. Now that COVID is seemingly, and start today, seemingly for the most part, knock on wood, behind us. But there's plenty of networking events that exist. Go to as many places as possible. Make that your priority. Unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe for you, starting a business requires a lot of selfishness. It requires a lot of sacrifices, especially in the earliest days to get it off the ground. You have to make amendments to your life and lifestyle. And you're going to have to work a lot more. You're going to have to skip the not the work happy hours, the friend happy hours, and go to, the networking events. Put yourself in a room. So I started early, doing something a lot of people would argue is quite reckless, but I spent a lot of money and actually even went into debt going to the Forbes Under 30 conference. I went 3 years. I spent a ton of money to go up to cities like Boston to be in the same room with entrepreneurs I admired. I met people there that gave me VIP passes to get into the VIP speaker events just so I could meet people. Like, do crazy things. I am part of like entrepreneur organizations. Actually, the most recent, I went to TechCrunch. I paid as much money as I could afford or even kind of loan on credit to get into those rooms and get in around people that I wanted to be with. And actually the greatest example I've seen, and this wasn't me, but I was in the front row listening to Ashton Kutcher and Guy Oseary speak at the Forbes Under 30 conference. And this kid that went to Brown was sitting in the front row. And as soon as they finished speaking, he ran up on the stage discreetly, backdoored, followed Guy Oseary, who manages like Madonna and U2 and Bono, all their money. They have a venture capital fund together. Ran up behind them, pitched them for 90 seconds, and he ended up raising money from them. So you got to do crazy things sometimes, but you got to go outside of your comfort zone. If you stay in your comfort zone, don't plan on being terribly successful. So network, do things that are out of character, stretch your boundaries, put yourself in places where you feel like you don't belong, but where you want to belong. That's what I did. And it was honestly a lot of fun.
You've talked a lot about growing your network, and I know that comes more naturally to some of us than others. I might be on one end of the spectrum more so than the other. Do you have advice on growing a network if it's not your comfort area, or how to gain that confidence to kind of put yourself out there in those kind of situations?
Yeah. Story about me. This is my mom's favorite story to tell about me. I grew up painfully shy. I cried every single day when I went to school for majority of kindergarten and first grade. I don't know why. I wasn't that social. And that has seemingly changed for the most part. I think just working on your self-confidence. Okay, so like this is not the only thing that can get you there, because people are naturally introverts and or extroverts. But getting better at that stuff, for me, a lot of it was just confidence, like self-confidence. I read a lot of self-help books. It's actually kind of the only thing I read. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Amazing book. Highly, highly recommend. Magic of Thinking Big. Makes you literally just get excited and feel more confident. So reading is something that really helped me when I was trying to break into the tech industry, because I just wasn't that confident. I didn't know how to code. I wasn't a product manager. I didn't have any technical training. So read. It makes you a lot more confident. And when you're more confident, you're more willing to put yourself out there. I've had entrepreneurs like again, go to some of these conferences. Don't be afraid to walk up to people and talk to them. You'd be really surprised. People will be an asshole to you sometimes. Pardon my French. But I've had, actually, I'm not going to name who it was, but I had an entrepreneur I really admired that I walk up to. I was so nervous and introduced myself, and he was so rude. He was so rude. And that sucked. But 9 times out of 10, if you're genuine, you're authentic, and you put yourself out there, and usually people can tell when you're nervous, and they're cognizant of that, and they're fine with that, because I was there once. Everyone was there. It's just a matter of working on yourself, whether that's through therapy. So that's something that really helped me years ago. Like, I'm not afraid to talk about any of that stuff. I know some of that stuff is taboo, but everybody's been there at one point in time. And if people tell you otherwise, they are full of it. Because I don't believe that. So work on yourself at home as much as you can. And it really will translate to your career. But make sure you do invest in putting yourself out there and putting that into practice.
We have a question from Alyssa. Welcome, Alyssa. Thank you for joining us today. Alyssa is very new in her career. How do you handle a situation where when people say they are going to do something and then do not follow through with it?
Yeah, it's always disappointing. It happens all the time. And it's disappointing. If possible. So I don't know the context around this, but if you're in a work environment or honestly a personal relationship, a romantic relationship, if people are not holding up their end of the deal, I am a big listen to your gut person. What do you think it's going to tell you to do? Always address it. But if people continue to do things like that, I think your answer because you asked the question. Remove yourself from the environment. Hold yourself clearly to a very high standard and you get your end of the deal done. Work somewhere or insert yourself into positions where there is reciprocity. Otherwise, a lot of times you're wasting your time. And if that's in your career, always work for people that you admire. Always work with people that you enjoy working with that hold up their end of the deal. That's where you're going to be most successful. And if you're not finding that wherever it is, make a change. Otherwise, expect it potentially to continue to happen if it happens after it's been addressed. I've learned the hard way.
I love that. From Sandra, welcome Sandra. I met a very successful and now retired entrepreneur a few weeks ago. His advice to my college grad daughter was to decide where you have a network or where you want to build your network and grow there, as he felt he grew the most fun when he finally settled in Denver, his last 20 years of working. What advice would you give to new college grads or those just beginning in their careers?
That's very good advice. And I would agree with that. Do what you have to do to get where you need to go, even if that means there are additional building blocks to get there. So for some people, that means they didn't get into their dream college. There is no shame in going somewhere else and transferring. I know so many people that have done that, or going to the job that wasn't the dream job and saying, I'm going to spend 18 months here. I'm going to get the experience that I need to get to where I need to go. And if you can get to where you need to go, but that's costly in some way, shape, or form, such as going into debt, do it responsibly. Do it. Put yourself where you want to be. Like I just said, put yourself in the room with the people you want to be like. Put yourself in the city where tech is booming and thriving. Denver is an amazing experience of an example of that. If you want to be like them, you want to be there, or that's the place for you, either chip away and do what you need to do, borrow money, get a loan, blow out your credit card. I don't recommend it, but I've done it. And I would not be where I am without taking those financial risks to do those things. I mean, it sounds like your daughter is young. It sounds like you're probably still very young. Like, just do it. You only live once and you only have one career. So you can sit around and wait for things to happen, but I guarantee you they won't. So the sooner you can put yourself in that position, I think the better.
Building off of that, here in Cincinnati, we have several boot camps and a lot of people trying to break into the tech industry. And you talked a little bit about how you don't necessarily think that formal education is the most important building block. Do you have any advice for those folks who maybe don't have relevant experience yet for how to stand out and how to take that first step?
Yeah, go get it. Go get it. I'm not going to tell everybody to drop out of college, but if you're getting a degree to get a degree, there's a lot of companies that want that. Make sure the types of companies you want to go work for are the ones that are going to require the box to check. If you want to go into, it just depends on where you want to be, right? And make sure that you're not spending money or spending time anywhere that you're not going to see a return on your investment. I'm sure we've all heard that term. Time is really the most valuable thing you have. And if you're not seeing a return or will see a return on where you're going to spend your time, stop. Drop out of school, go into a more relevant program. And oftentimes technical training programs are a lot less expensive than undergraduate or associate degrees. So if that's what you want to do, go do it. A lot of people, or almost everyone, might disagree with you, but if they don't understand where you're trying to go, listen to your gut, listen to yourself. Like, you just don't need to spend time doing things that aren't going to get you where you want to go, or money. So, do everything you can to get your foot in the door. There are not enough certifications, formal training programs. There are so many like free courses that are out there too. You don't have to pay money for everything. Invest your time the right way.
What is the best piece of advice that you have been given in your career?
The 5 people you spend the most time around, you expect to become the 5 people you spend your most of your time around, right? So if that's people that are motivated and great influences and are super successful or just positive, right? That might be a parent. That's not someone you're looking up to career-wise necessarily, but the people you want to be like, expect to become them. So choose very wisely.
I love that. My final question, if anyone else wants to submit some last minute questions before we wrap up Sarah's session. You've told us a lot of painful experiences in tech that I think many of us have experienced or again will experience. How do you maintain that positive outlook through that whole journey of rejection and loss and failure?
Your network.
It can be really tough a lot of the time.
Your network. Make sure you always have people that you can call. So if you're having like a hard day at work, I have certain mentors of mine that I really wanted to be investors in my company that had, the capital, the resources to do it. But we like mutually agreed that that's the person when it feels like everything is burning to the ground, you want to be able to call without having the attachment of being like, well, they're an investor. They're going to judge me. They're going to be pissed. Try to create some separation there. I think that's important. But it's like in a professional world, it's like what happens when, you were broken up with, or in your personal life, like when something bad happens, you have your friends and your family for that. And you can still do that in work, but it might not always resonate the same, or people might not understand and have that same level of like empathy or sympathy that you're looking for because they don't understand the type of world that you live and work in. So that's the building block I really pushed is the network. People that you can call at the end of the day to share things with that are exciting, but also to be like, what am I going to do? Like, do I quit my job? Do I sell my company? Do I hire more people? Do I fire this person? Like, the really hard things need to be talked about, I think, more in tech. And I think people do a pretty good job of it, but there's always room to do better. And at the end of the day, you have to have a good network professionally because friends and family aren't always going to understand that. They're not always going to cut it or help us make the choices. So network is your net worth, I suppose, in terms of being successful financially, being satisfied, feeling confident, all of those things.